Well, let's get back to it.
Britain faces a further 4 days of wet weather from today, with a weekend washout on the way for much of the country. Wet weather and a weekend washout.
Oh no.
This is after intense downpours brought more than a foot of rain to the Lake District. That's a foot, kids. Patriotic British measurements, not that snowflake multiplied by 10 European metric nonsense. Feet and inches is what made this country great. 8 inches to the foot, 4 feet to the yard, and 1,000 yards to the stair. Learn it, or you'll see me after class. The torrential conditions will continue into the weekend, with another weather front arriving from the west today. It's a weekend washout from the west with a weather front. Some areas got more than a week's worth of rain in one day. That is 3 inches, or if you insist on using continental surrender measurements, you double it and add 32 to get metres. So let's see, 3 inches times 2 is 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 32 is 39. Wow. The west of the country got 39 metres of rain today. Can you believe that?
No.
Rain warnings were in place for the southwest of England, the southwest of Scotland, and this is for Saturday, an area that also includes Glasgow, I bet. I'll check on that while you wait. All those people... Go. I wonder if they've checked ahead, all those people that are coming for COP26, what the weather's going to be like, and have packed accordingly. Bet they haven't. Oh my God, look at that. Raining tonight, a lot. This is Glasgow. And raining tomorrow, and raining on Sunday, and raining on Monday. And then, what? Not raining for 3 days? Pfft, rubbish. And then raining on Friday, and then raining next Saturday, and raining on Sunday, and raining on Monday, and raining on Tuesday, and raining on Wednesday, and raining on Thursday, and every day for the rest of your lives. Oh well, never mind. At least it's clean. At least it's see-through and not, foamy and brown.
Disgusting.
Exactly. Then on Sunday, all of southern England, North Wales and the southwest of Scotland is under a rain warning for the whole day, which sounds like everywhere to me. Scotland has 14 flood warnings and 7 alerts. England has 47 alerts and 23 warnings. Wales has 33 alerts and no warnings that I am aware of. And what's the difference between a warning and a na-na-na? No. What's the difference between an alert and a warning? A warning sounds like this.
Warning, warning.
An alert sounds like this. And just as the world descends on the nation for that climate change conference, and half of Westminster will decamp to Scotland on National Rail, National Rail told passengers customers are advised not to travel north of Preston today.
What?
Priceless. In the Dumfries and Galloway town of Annan, 2 footbridges apparently were swept away as the River Annan rose. Network Rail Scotland said they were closing Glasgow Central to Carlisle line, which means that travellers making their way to COP26 from London would have to travel from King's Cross to Edinburgh. And I'll check this if necessary, but I don't believe that Edinburgh is Glasgow.
Correct.
So you'll go to Edinburgh and then, I don't know, hitch? You could try and get an Uber from Edinburgh to Glasgow, and the best of luck with that. Because major road routes between Glasgow and here, there and everywhere are submerged by rain. COP26 delegates are going to need to get a bigger boat. So tonight, clear spells at first before another band of heavy rain arrives in western areas and moves quickly eastwards, accompanied by blustery winds. Blimey, it's like winter outside. Tomorrow, all parts seeing a mixture of sunny spells and showers. The showers will be mostly frequent in the west, with the risk of thunder, lightning, very, very frightening.
Rock and roll!
And from Sunday to Tuesday, showers or longer spells of rain. Windy and colder.
Oh, fabulous.
Showers or rain, that's the choice. Select. Do you want to hear the long-range weather forecast?
No.
Right, this is the first 2 weeks in November. Blimey, it's practically November already. It's almost December. It's Jesus' birthday. Right, first couple of weeks in November. And this is it, really. I mean, we're about to get plunged into darkness for what will seem like an epoch, and the weather's going to be blooming awful, and it's just misery everywhere.
Stop whining.
First couple of weeks in November, showers and strong winds across the southern and central areas, maybe even snow over mountains. Too early. Remaining unsettled, temperatures lower than average for the time of year. That's the first couple of weeks in November. Lower. The second half of November, northwesterly winds will feel cool with temperatures below average. The west and the northwest will see the wettest conditions. Is there too many W's in this? I think there's about 10 or 12 too many W's. Northwesterly winds will feel cool, coming from the west. Wet weather coming in from on northwesterly winds from the west. Temperatures below average. The west and the northwest will see the wettest conditions. You bet they will. Longer spells of rain will likely be wintry over the Scottish Highlands. We're into the towards the end of November now. There will be some short-lived, drier and more settled spells. There will be some short-lived, drier and more settled spells. We'll take it. Archie texts, evening, Nick. Aren't you glad that Tony Blair isn't Prime Minister? If he was, we'd be at war with France by now. Phew, says Archie. Yeah, that was a close thing. Just got away with it. Fortunately, we have grown-ups in charge of this country now. We're doomed. Tony says Boris should deploy HMS Brexit to see off the French. No, yeah, it's sunk. It sprang a leak a couple of years ago. They tried to repair it with bluster. Boris just looked at it and went, "Pooh!" But it refused to mend. So what are you going to do? Simon says, Nick, I hear that Greta is in London. Did she get the memo? What memo? What, the memo that said blah, blah, blah? Did she not get the memo? What memo? You mean she's supposed to be in Glasgow? Oh, she'll get there, don't worry. She'll take a boat. Or she'll walk. And to be clear, she'll only do that, go by some ridiculous around-the-houses method of getting there, because people online are going, oh, well, there you are, you see. You can ignore everything she says because she just got in a car. Or she ate a part of something that used to be a cow. So now we can dismiss everything she says. What about this and what about that? You know, the what about people. This says, roads in Glasgow shut, drivers facing chaos and diversions in place everywhere, all for Muppets to talk about the environment and do nothing and not one hand glued to the tarmac. Can I interest you in some punctuation?
No.
Apparently not. Shall I read it again?
No.
Roads in Glasgow shut. I'll just assume that there's supposed to be a comma in there. Drivers facing chaos and diversions in place everywhere, all for Muppets to, spelt wrong, talk about the environment and do nothing and not one hand glued to the tarmac. Yeah, it's going to be a gas fest. They will add to the hot air emissions, and that'll be about it. I betcha that at the end of it, they conclude that it really is awful and something should be done. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @lbc. Glasgow, hello Frankie.
How did Nick go?
An ecstasy of fumbling. Yes, Frankie.
All right, Nick, sorry there, pal. I dropped my specs.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done that before? Somebody's on the phone, you take your glasses off and put them back on?
No.
Anyway, no, thanks, Nick. Good to talk to you, pal. Are you keeping all right?
Yeah, fine. What's up, Frankie?
Well, just before, I usually phone you on a Friday night, and funnily enough, there's a few specs in a bit of rain in Glasgow.
There's a what?
It's rained here. A bit of rain.
A rain,
couple of-
yeah, raining.
Aye.
Well, I would
Just-
imagine so, yeah.
just-
Weather
No,
update
it's
just
just a-
in. Raining in Glasgow.
Nico, it's like a couple of specs. Anyway, what does we date deserve? Or these head cases coming up to my city, and I can't get a bus to my work now. It
You
takes me. my
Can't get a
journey-
bus
No,
because
honestly,
of COP26.
Nick, my bus journey is 15 minutes. See,
Right.
now it's about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half, right.
So, honestly,
Well,
because of this cop and
yeah.
Bodger's there.
Some,
so what's the point?
a diesel-spewing bus standing in traffic for an hour and a half is saving the planet, Frankie, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Got to go. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @lbc. Did he say everything that he was going to say? Maybe not. I guess we'll never know. Another satisfied customer.
Now, wait a minute. I don't like that kind of talk. Now, just stop it. It upsets me.
Trev text, Nick, are you insane? 39 metres of rain, as I described in my accurate weather report just moments ago. Yes, 39 metres of rain, he says. You don't know what you're talking about. What? Where's your public service remit? Outraged, says Trev. I'll assume you're being sarcastic. But you should never assume such things. You just don't know these days. You just don't know. Gary tweets, Nick, sat in our front room and a bloke just walked by our front window dressed up as a wallaby. Any idea what's going on? Yeah, I think we've declared war on New Zealand. It's an invasion. And John emails, have you seen Billy Bragg's tweet? No, we're not that close. What tweet? Have I seen Billy Bragg's tweet? No, I have not. What did he tweet? Oh, here it is. As though by magic it appears right before my eyeballs. Here's the tweet. Quote, was asked why I was wearing a mask this morning while ordering breakfast. Did you see those images of the Commons? I replied with a bare-faced government facing the masked opposition. I don't want anyone in here thinking I'm a Tory. Right. I don't think he's in any. I don't think Billy Bragg is in any danger of anybody thinking that of him. Isla White, hello, Billy.
Hello, Nick.
Surely not the same one.
I'm afraid not. I wish I had his bank balance, Nick.
Right.
Oh, Nick, honestly, you talk so much sense.
What,
You always
already?
do,
I've
Nick.
been barely on for 20 minutes, and already I've talked sense.
Nick, you always do, and that's why I listen to you. I think you have a lot of callers like this. When I first tuned into you about 5 years ago, I thought, what on earth is this on the
Exactly,
radio?
yeah.
And then I just got addicted.
I've heard that so many times, and I knew what you were going to say before you said it. And so many times people say, well, wait a minute, this is not what I'm used to, therefore I don't like it. And then they register a complaint immediately, of course, because that's where the human race is these days. You don't suffer anything. You're incapable of just turning it off if you don't like it. You want that person fired and killed.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Opinions aren't a different opinion is unpopular now, isn't it, Nick? I mean, if you disagree, if you have a different opinion, it's now against the law. You have to be one side or the other, and people
precisely.
don't like that.
Yeah.
Nick, I called in because I agreed with what you said about the politicians meeting for COP26.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a load of old cobblers, as you said, and I know you didn't say that, but what I said to your lovely producer on the telephone was that when did politicians ever get together in a room and come up with a sensible decision?
Well, the reason for that is because when they're talking with each other, particularly when they're doing it in public, they're not doing it to talk to each other. Everything that they say and do is a message to their fans back home.
Yes, it is. And here's the thing, Nick. Right, I used to be a little town councillor.
How little? Just out of interest.
So Ventnor, I was town councillor in Ventnor, and that's got a population of about 6,000. But my so-called constituency was probably about 2,000 people. So, town councillor, don't get paid or anything, no allowance or any of that. And I can honestly tell you this, Nick, the amount of things that are embargoed and sort of held off as official press releases. You're absolutely right. Everything's all been pre-discussed. Everything has already been decided. It's just a fancy bit of fanfare and trumpet going on to make it look like they're doing something.
Exactly.
When actually
they're not.
I think China, America, isn't it? All of these countries. I mean, how are they getting over here?
Well,
are they coming over on a boat?
China is not coming at all. Are they sending one person? I think they're sending a teddy bear or like a panda, something like that. And America is the president of America is coming in his normal fashion with about 100 accompanying planes and 1,000 security staff.
Yeah, I was going to say, and his entourage as well. And for what? For something that's already been pre-agreed behind the scenes, because that's not a conspiracy. That's what happens. That's what happened when I was on the town council doing, looking at poo, parking, and planning. And they call it the free bid.
Please, did you have to look at it? Could you not just discuss it? Did you have to bring it in as evidence?
Well, see, that's the thing, Nick. What people love doing. Particularly, I think, it happens, I think, in all trickles of government, and this isn't a party political thing. This is inside of politics and outside. They seem to like being able to just set up a meeting for the sake of a meeting, and it could have been done in an email.
Yeah. But just the very idea that they couldn't get together to save the human race on Zoom. But they have to be in a room in one particular city for a couple of days. It's just absolute nonsense. I mean, do you think that Joe Biden is going to be sitting in an audience listening to the president of Finland, if indeed such a person even exists, banging on about climate change, and he's going to change his mind and sign up to a new deal right there on the spot? Of course not. It's just such silliness.
Yeah, this is the thing. What they do is they say they're gonna change it. They say they're gonna do this, that, and the other, and then what they do is they put it off for a year, or they say, what, actually we're a little bit behind on target, and then what happens? I mean, what's happened to David Cameron and George Osborne's national debt being lowered? I mean, that's history, and that was 5 years ago. I mean, that's just one example. Politicians are all about the short term, and I think this is
well, there's a good reason for that, Billy. It's because we're all about the short term. Nobody's remotely interested in long-term benefit if it means short-term pain.
Yeah. Well, see, Nick, this is the other thing I get annoyed with, because you're probably going to tell me to choose one side or the other now after saying this, but I also get annoyed with the vegan activists that tell us to completely change our lifestyles overnight and stop eating meat and stop turning the electricity on and go off grid and live like Tarzan in the jungle for the rest of our lives. I get really annoyed when I listen to that, because it just seems to me that there's no balance. Where are the people that are saying, actually, cut out the meat for 1 day a week? Because I do that, and that seems like quite a sensible idea.
You're just listening to people who yell the loudest. I mean, what we do now is just pay attention to whoever shouts the loudest. That's the way that this country's gone. This country is run by people who shout the loudest, by which I mean the people who have voted for the current regime and Brexit and all the rest of it. Whoever shouts the loudest wins these days. And as for vegan activists, I'm unaware of such a phenomenon, and I very much doubt that you should be that concerned.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of me being concerned. I think it's just I get very frustrated with people not being, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, where people aren't, people expect you to be one side or the other now, and they don't. They want to disagree with you. They don't want to reason with you.
Yeah.
And
I disagree.
There's anything unpopular with that. I don't think there's anything unpopular with being reasonable. And people just saying.
No, I don't know. Well, name me one person who is in a position of power who is reasonable.
Well, see, there isn't anybody, but you know who was, and I hope you don't berate me for this, but I really liked Gordon Brown, Nick. Right. I thought he was a really good Prime Minister, and I think, and listening to the stuff that he's saying, he's talking a lot of sense.
Well, I tell you what, the difference between Gordon Brown and the current regime is really stark. Regardless of anything other than how they come across on TV, Gordon Brown sounds, looks, and has the bearing of a Prime Minister, whereas Bodger
Yeah. Wait a minute.
doesn't.
Yeah, well, and obviously Boris Johnson, well, let's full stop there. Do we need to say any more?
No.
And it's just, what I see in Gordon Brown, he's never coming back, is he? Obviously,
Well, he's just a serious person. But Tony Blair was a serious person. I mean, John Major was a serious person. All of these people that used to run the country were serious. Now we voted for a clown show and are surprised now that we've got a circus.
Well, yeah, because obviously if you vote for it, and this is the thing, I don't really feel sorry for anybody that did vote for Boris Johnson because they knew what they were going to get. I mean,
well, they say they did. They say they did, but if you describe to them in detail what they've actually got, I'm sure that none of them voted to be poorer or more hungry or taxed more. They didn't actually vote for any of that, but of course you can't admit that you've been had because there's too much loss of face. So people dig their heels in and say, "Oh no, it's absolutely right. I've definitely voted to become poorer and more hungry." Yep.
Yeah, they're unwilling, aren't they, to accept even they may be half wrong. I mean, let alone the fact that they're obviously completely wrong, but they're unable to even admit. How are we going to move forward if we're dealing with people like that? If we're dealing with people that don't have the not the bravery, but you know what I mean. If they don't have the tact to just say, look, actually, you know what, I got it wrong, then how are we going to move forward? I mean, what's going to happen at the next general election? The same thing if this continues. I mean,
don't worry about that, Billy. There's not going to be a next general election. He'll be the dear leader for life. Yeah, I've got to go, but thanks for that, mate. 0345 6060 973. He is in the process of engineering being the leader for life, or at least until he gets bored and wants to go and do something else. Lie on a chaise and have perfumed oil rubbed into his nodes.
Disgusting.
by various buxom wenches. I bet he dreams of it every night.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah, until he can't stand it anymore. He can't stand the love and the adulation from his fans anymore, and he wants to go and make some serious money. Then he wants to be dear leader for life, and that's what they appear to be trying to engineer in every little way. It's also, what would Donald Trump do? 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter it's @lbc, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC, it's 10:30, the news headlines with Zora Sullivan.
I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio, making a picture again.
It's a radio show, dear. Adrian emails, the clocks go back this weekend. Oh my God, I can't stand it. Am I the only person that is tired over the last sort of couple of weeks? Just tired all the time. I'm feeling tired.
Stop whining.
I think it's because the nights are drawing in. I'm feeling SAD upset. But it's about to get much, much worse. Is it tonight or tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? Tomorrow night into Sunday morning. Oh my God, I can't stand it. And then it lasts. The darkness lasts for what? 8 months, something like that. Anyway, Adrian says, never mind about all that. We will have all that fantastic TV to look forward to. Yeah, all those programs like, the one that's about. I've got nothing. Got 1,000 channels and nothing to watch. The A to Z will be on Christmas Eve, by the way, as far as I'm aware. Christmas Eve, the A to Z of 20, whichever year this is. Fill in the blanks. That's 10 till 1, the A to Z of 2021. I think it's probably 2021, isn't it? There or thereabouts. It's close enough for jazz. Weybridge, Julius.
Evening, Nick.
Julius.
Other than being completely tired, are you well?
Yes, I'm super. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. I know you're renowned for not doing your research, Nick, but during your earlier monologue, I was amused and often am, strangely enough, but you mentioned, we're musing on, how Greta Thunberg is getting herself to Glasgow.
Yeah.
And I realised this afternoon I'd seen her in an interview basically saying it was unclear whether she'd been invited to this event. Now, I don't.
I think
don't
it's
know
pretty
whether that
clear.
means-
I bet it's pretty clear that she has not been invited to this event.
Well, nor anyone else of her generation
Yeah.
who's going to be living in the future dystopia we're creating.
Correct.
And, given that I researched today, but on that basis, that COP1 in 1995 was in Berlin, and we've had one of these every year since, and they still haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
Concomitantly, apparently, with a new conference called CMP, we're now up to CMP 16, and another one called CMA. We're now up to CMA 3.
Right.
This is going to go on in perpetuity while Greta's generation burn in hell, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, COP26, not much COP.
Well, yeah, it's not as funny as it might be now, though, is it? Really?
Well, the destruction of humankind, not funny. No, I suppose not. No.
She said more in blah 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 than the entire lot of them have said in 26 years.
Correctamundo. 3 words, that's all it took. 3 small syllables, in a language that she doesn't even speak as her first language.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice chatting.
Cheers, Julius. 0345 6060 973. You know who's upset about the climate? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger says leaders who claim combating climate change hurts the economy are stupid or liars.
Correct.
Ahead of the COP26 climate summit, the former governor of California says cutting carbon emissions will benefit global economies. Of course. Well, the governor of California he's the ex-governor, of course. He set targets to reduce exhaust fumes and greenhouse gases, which is pretty un-Republican of him. Schwarzenegger is also critical of an environmental agenda focused on lifestyle sacrifice. And here we are back at the caller that I was chatting to some moments ago. He was talking about vegan extremists. Are there any? I suppose so. I don't know. Don't bring me into it. Schwarzenegger says he has reduced his meat intake by around 3/4 in the last few years. He's down to only 2 cows a week. He says he's gaining better health as a result. He expressed particular alarm about the air pollution and greenhouse gases coming from shipping, and suggested that the most important thing we can do as individuals to cut carbon is to shop local. He obviously hasn't gotten our memo. That's the last thing we're interested in doing, shopping local. He says, buy local products. Every time you buy something from overseas, that is evil for the environment. That is the worst thing you can do, which is bad news for that totally insignificant, tremendously huge trade deal that our government has signed with countries that are so far away. You'd have to leave the planet to get further. He said, you can have competition, but you have to be smart about it, because if people are dead, they are dead. It's over. But Arnie remains optimistic. He says there is no fate but that which we make for ourselves.
Affirmative.
Well, that wasn't him, was it?
Affirmative.
There it is. Spot on, Arnie. Doctors have been talking about climate change as well. This was in the Lancet, but reported in the Washington Post. God, it's a bit grim. Climate change is set to become the defining narrative of human health, a top medical journal warned on Wednesday, triggering food shortages, deadly disasters and disease outbreaks that would dwarf the toll of the coronavirus. But aggressive efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions from human activities could avert millions of unnecessary deaths, according to analysis from more than 100 doctors and health experts. They are just experts in possession of facts, so nobody is remotely interested in anything they've got to say.
Correct.
All it will take to avoid this looming disaster is enormous political will and short-term pain for long-term gain. We're screwed. Rising temperatures have led to higher rates of heat illness, causing farm workers to collapse in fields, elderly people to die in their apartments. Insects carrying tropical diseases have multiplied and spread towards the poles. The amount of plant pollen in the air is increasing, worsening asthma and other respiratory conditions. Extreme floods and catastrophic storms have boosted the risk of cholera and other waterborne diseases. Smoke from fires in California and other places infiltrate the lungs and then the bloodstreams of people as far away as Texas and New York. Droughts intensify, crops fail, hunger stalks millions of the world's most vulnerable people. But what's it like apart from that?
Oh, fabulous.
This was in The Lancet. The Lancet study is just the latest salvo from health professionals demanding a swift end to burning fossil fuels and other planet-warming activities. In a special report last week, the World Health Organization called climate change the biggest health threat facing humanity, warning its effects will be more catastrophic and enduring than the coronavirus pandemic. Dozens of health experts are headed to the UN Climate Summit starting in a couple of days, aiming to convince world leaders that they must take bolder action to curb their nation's carbon output. Yet just half of countries surveyed said they have a national climate and health strategy in place. Trends in renewable energy generation and adaptation initiatives have improved only slightly, and most of the world's biggest emitters, including the United States and China, continue to subsidize fossil fuels at rates of tens of billions of dollars a year, rivaling the amounts that they spend on public health, for crying out loud. The outcomes of national spending debates and international climate negotiations will either lock humanity into an increasingly extreme and unpredictable environment, the report says, or deliver a future of improved health, reduced inequity, and economic and environmental sustainability. So it's either going to be heaven or hell, depending on how serious we are in our efforts to prevent hell. We're doomed. Based on countries' current pledges under the Paris Climate Accord, average temperatures are on track to increase by a catastrophic 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Now, I know that doesn't sound very much, but apparently it is. The planet has already warmed by about 1.2 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial era. Holy moly. The modern world and everything that's in it, from the Industrial Revolution on, increased the heat on this planet by 1.2 degrees, and it's going to go up by 2.7. If you haven't learned to swim yet, now's the time. A UN report released on Wednesday found that governments are still planning to boost fossil fuel use on a scale far beyond even those insufficient targets already agreed. G20 countries have directed more new funding to fossil fuels than clean energy since the start of the pandemic. Will we ever learn?
No.
No. We won't do anything until the water is actually lapping around the bottom of our nostrils. We won't do anything until it's too late. You know that, and so do I. Everything else is, like Greta said, blah, blah, blah. The death toll from the climate change will outstrip that of the coronavirus, the scientists warned, unless drastic action is taken to avert further warming and adapt to changes underway. Already, apparently, climate change routinely threatens to overwhelm health systems' capacity to respond. When record high temperatures scorched the Pacific Northwest of America this summer, the rate of emergency room admissions spiked to 69 times, higher than the same period in 2019. Blimey. El Niño weather patterns, which are projected to intensify as the planet warms, cause about 6 million children to go hungry. But there's 6 million children somewhere else, so nobody cares. Air pollution causes tens of thousands. Well, we don't even care about poor, hungry children in this country. The government was forced, under pain of public embarrassment, to care about them by a blooming footballer, for crying out loud. Air pollution causes tens of thousands of early deaths each year, even at low levels deemed safe by the Environmental Protection Agency. The warming of the Amazon, combined with deforestation, will expose 11 million people to potentially lethal heat by the end of the century. Drought in Madagascar pushed more than 1 million people to the brink of starvation, but they're somewhere else, so, like I said. Maybe Bob Geldof will write a song about them. Please, Bob, I'm begging you, don't do it. By far the deadliest hazard, apparently, comes from the act of burning fossil fuels, which generates tiny lung-irritating particles known as PM2.5. One estimate published this February put the toll of this pollution at more than 10 million excess deaths a year. 10 million! And then there's, you ain't going to like this bit, fungal illnesses, which can't be treated with vaccines or antibiotics. This is like forthcoming attractions. Never mind about viruses, fungal illnesses. There's going to be a fungus among us. Apparently there have not been many fungi capable of infecting humans because the microbes don't thrive at typical body temperatures. But as global warming increases the average temperatures in the environments where fungi live, it might be pressuring these species to adapt, which could make them better suited for invading human beings, from which we have no defence. And then there's disease-carrying mosquitoes moving towards more temperate areas and higher elevations, as in here. This is the Lancet. They argue that inaction will be even more expensive, but as inaction costs less in the short term and no one's interested in short-term pain for long-term gain, we're screwed. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Hi, honey. How are you?
Arnie, I'm fabulous. Thank you for asking. Sussex. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Tom.
Yes.
You sound surprised, Tom. You called me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when you were going to come through. First time caller, so.
Ah, welcome along.
Hello. I was just calling. I've only tuned in briefly, but I heard you talking about all the climate stuff that's been going on, and I think the problem we're having, outside of the obvious of what is happening with the climate, how things are changing, is the way that we're talking about it. And there's two parts in my mind that I think that are issues. The first being the way that it's done in such an alarmist way. I don't think is good for anybody, particularly young people, and growing up from a mental health standpoint.
Oh, do me a favour. Well, we're going to have to. What, you want soft music playing in the background when we're talking about it? You want us to write it?
I think it.
Put it on a balloon, maybe a party balloon.
No, I think the way that it is discussed should be done more pragmatically and not in quite such an alarming tone.
You know what where pragmatism gets you? Nowhere.
Well, if we don't have it, then we won't get anywhere.
Well, we haven't got anywhere. I mean, who is being alarmist in governments? There isn't anybody.
I'm not saying that the rhetoric doesn't have some value. What I'm saying is that the way it should be discussed should be being turned into a way where, rather than saying, not enough is being done, this government's terrible, this government's awful, left, right, whatever, side of the hall they fall on, discussion should be had by going, right, look, this is the kind of money that we need to be talking about, because I don't think I've ever heard that in any discussion. All I keep hearing is more needs to be spent, more needs to be done, but nobody actually says what it is.
Yeah, but you're not privy to the discussions that government ministers have with their opposite numbers in other countries. They're not yelling across the table saying, "Oh my God, we're all doomed." They're talking in exactly those terms, or rather, they're presumably trying to find ways of making the nothing that they do sound better.
But that's the same with every political issue. It's trying to make it sound better. But rather than saying it's terrible, we're all going to die, all of the stuff that you talked about recently, which are projections, sure, many of them are very possible. We don't know about all of them. They're all projections, obviously, and hopefully they're not going to go in the direction that we're talking about, because things will change or they won't be as bad as we think or whatever. But I think we need to look at things and try and talk on it in a more cost-benefit type analysis thing.
But who is it that you are talking about should be discussing in those terms? You mean the general public? You're talking about Greta Thunberg? Me? Who?
No, I think that what is being put out there should be...
By whom?
More... the actual figures and everything like that, I think, should be being discussed by the people that are making these decisions, industry, whoever the boards are that are providing the science, forgotten their names now, the IOPC and all of that stuff, the people that are providing the science and the things to say, look, this is what we need to do, but also working and looking at it from an economical standpoint, going, look, where's the best way that we can put our money into this to incentivize people to create things that are going to speed this up.
Yeah, I'm unclear as to what it is you're saying. You seem to be blaming the government, this government's and other governments around the world's inactivity on the people that are bringing the problem to their attention. It's their fault.
No, I'm saying that the discussion should be being made more visible to us via, I don't know, the media, Greta, whatever, rather than just the media and Greta and stuff saying it's all terrible, not enough is being done. Well, perhaps if we say, look, this is what needs to be done. Okay, rather than just saying we need to switch to renewables and that's it, which let's say is a pretty obvious statement based on everything that we seem to be knowing.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that's it. That's not the arguments that I'm hearing. That they say we must switch to renewables and that's it. There's an entire list of things, a menu of potential options.
Well, yes, if we're talking about the diet stuff, I'm just using that as an example. I know there's more than that to the whole picture to change things. I'm just saying that in terms of an energy standpoint, is a big thing.
Okay, but we seem to be getting off you seem to have started by, and this was one of your two thoughts, by blaming the lack of action and results on people, I don't know, shouting too loudly, being depressing.
No, I think the focus is being put more on that than what it should be being put on, which is having the discussion about how are we going to do this, not this is what's going to happen if we don't.
Yeah, but that's what governments do. That's why we hire the smart people. Well, I'll take that back. That's why we hire people who are supposed to be smart to make those decisions. We, as a people, make our feelings known to them. We tell them the direction in which we would like to go, and then it's up to them to make it happen. They surely aren't waiting to hear from Greta or me or whoever it is that you're talking about to tell them what policies they should be enacting in order to achieve the results that are required. That's their job. Anyway, Tom, it was slightly confusing, but it was a first effort. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Nick Abbot, LBC.
Oh, hello.
85 cars. That's ridiculous. The President of the United States of America was in an 85-car motorcade. Well, I've just about heard it all now. You see what I mean? Nobody cares. It's an I'm gonna. That's what's going to come out of COP26. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Don't worry about a thing. And we pretend that, and it's all about the whatabouts. We pretend that it's got nothing to do with us, that we are world leading. And all of this pollution and CO2 and the greenhouse gases has got nothing to do with us because, what about China? China. And the reason that we have less pollution in this country than they do in China is because we've sent all of our dirtiest industry to China. We've just offshored our pollution. They pollute so we don't have to. Stuff that we used to make here in dirty fingernail industries, we now sent to China. We buy the stuff back from them, right enough, but we just don't want to, have dirty our own hands. We'd rather they did the dirtying for us. So much of the pollution in China is ours and the rest of the West, because all the stuff that we used to make ourselves, we now get made over there by Chinese people who are breathing our pollution and dying so we don't have to. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Daryl texts, Nick, as you previously pointed out, global warming will actually make the UK colder due to disruption of the Gulf Stream in the Atlantic. But if we just push on through, eventually the UK will get warmer again, no? Yeah, that's a good idea, Daryl. All we've got to do is wait around, just push through this incoming cold period, And in, 2,000 years' time, it'll be absolutely balmy over here. T-shirt weather. This says, just a warning to others, I just lost my wife due to my gambling addiction. I'm so upset I'd do anything to win her back. A listener with material.
Oh, no.
Let that be the last one on this show. And Simon says, Nick, I hear O'Brien has launched a board game. Are you considering launching any Nick Abbott merch? Well, if I did, I'd have to give it away, being as it would be literally worthless. And excellent value for money. Roy tweets, I hate the rain. It reminds me of Gene Hackman dancing. What does that mean? I hate the rain. It reminds me of Gene Hackman dancing. What does that mean?
Well, he's an actor, and I assume he went dancing in the rain.
Did he?
I thought that was Gene Kelly.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Gene Kelly, you idiot. You should be ashamed of yourself, Roy. Right. So maybe that was a joke. Already I've failed in that's two jokes, or two in a row, in fact, on the Nicky Abbott show. How disappointing. God, the stuff that's been going on this week with the water. Boy, talk about a quick U-turn. An Environment Agency boss today. Well, there is a U-turn, but they're still sort of trying to defend their previous position, the regime. An Environment Agency boss today warned us not to risk swimming in our rivers amid concern over sewage being dumped in them. John Leyland, the Environment Agency's Chief of Staff, insisted rivers were, quotes, not there for human swimming and were instead for the wildlife and the fish that live within them. Just as the air is not for us to fly in, it's for the wildlife and birds that fly within it. In it. What's he talking about? It's as though he's suggesting that the government has provided rivers not for us, but for the fishes. Did we not read the small print? This river is not for you. Meanwhile, data released by the Environment Agency shows that water companies dumped raw sewage into England's rivers and seas more than, get ready, grip onto something firm. Guess how many times they did it last year? Go on, just pluck a number out of the air. I double dare you. I bet my glamorous assistant wants to play this game. How many times did our water companies dump raw sewage into England's rivers and seas last year? Just 1 year. Yes?
50.
50 times. Close. 400,000.
What?
400,000 times last year. Wow. Environmental campaigners also raised concerns that only 14% of rivers in England are rated in, quotes, good ecological health, and none meet chemical standards. Wow, I had no idea. I thought that we were doing relatively well. John Leyland, the Environment Agency's Chief of Staff, said the rivers that we have are not there for human swimming. They're there for the wildlife and the fish that live within them. And the current regulations require us to try and get the water to a health that's suitable for that. He said, I think that if we wanted to start talking about water that's fit for human health, then that is a good conversation to have, but that is a much bigger conversation. Are you kidding me? The policy of this government is to have water in our rivers and seas that's only just fit enough for animals. Of course, most of the water in our rivers would cause fish to swim upside down. Asked if it was a personal risk, he said, I don't swim in rivers, and I would just advise everybody to use the information and data. I wouldn't advise anybody to take a risk. This is incredible. Remember when they told us that we were going to have better environmental standards as long as we could leave the evil European overlords?
Liar!
That was a lie too. Just add that to the pile of lies. You couldn't trust this government as far as you could throw them in the building that they're sitting in. Come to Britain, look at our beautiful rivers, take pictures of the brown foam, but don't get any on you. And if you go down to the sea today, you're in for a big surprise.
Disgusting.
Apparently the private companies that own our water are expected to carry out their own pollution testing and report how often they are dumping untreated sewage. But in one of those what would Donald Trump do moments that seem to surround everything that this regime does, the Environment Agency's enforcement budget has been cut by 2/3. Who could have predicted that? Who could also have predicted that by cutting their enforcement budget by 2/3, they can't do much enforcement anymore? So it's up to the water companies themselves to tell us if they've been bad. And to nobody's surprise, they are disinclined to do that. An unnamed whistleblower who worked as a senior figure at one of the major water companies alleged that it was easy to cheat and cut corners, saying that they knew when water inspections would take place. They said most of the time we wouldn't treat the sewage properly, but when we knew a sample was due to take place, then we'd start following best practices and use the chemicals so that our samples would pass. Can you believe it? Well, yeah, actually I can, yeah. I'd be amazed if it was any other way. He said, he or she said we'd always find a way to make the samples pass. It didn't matter how we got there. If there was a way to save money and find loopholes, it's what we would do. I can't believe it. I actually can believe it, but I can't believe it. And we know where the government is on this. They insisted that these companies could pretty much do what they want before a stink was raised. You know, literally. And on Tuesday, the government climbed down over legal controls against dumping raw sewage into our waterways, because even their fans raised a finger of complaint. I mean, even Bodger's most die-hard cultists would stop at having raw sewage in their rivers and their seas. That's the line. That's the line in the sand, literally, sort of a brown, foamy line in the sand. The House of Lords backed a proposal to place a new legal duty on water companies to, quote, take all reasonable steps to prevent sewage discharges. This enabled the bill to be sent back to the Commons, and the government will table its own amendment. Now, pay attention to this wording. It's going to put a legal duty on utility firms to, quote, secure a progressive reduction in the adverse impacts of discharges from storm overflows. That's pretty cute wording there. Secure a progressive reduction. So if I hit you in the face 100 times a day, every day, if in a year I reduce that to just 99 times a day I would hit you in the face, would that count as a progressive reduction in adverse impacts?
Yes.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in Brentwood. David.
Yeah, good evening, Nick. Just wanted to, well, not correct you because I would never deem to correct you, but I would just wanted to pass comment on you saying that we outsourced our production to China. I mean, I think that's a bit too cute, isn't it? I mean, the fact is that China is moved from a command economy to a sort of semi-capitalist economy, and they have far cheaper labour. They don't have any labour rights. They were always going to be the cheapest produced, but even now they're finding that, you know, they're like competing with the lowest common denominator in Vietnam or wherever, and the next stop is Africa.
Well, you know who could stop that?
Who?
The consumer. If the consumer was to actually be ethical in their purchases, in their purchase decisions, then all of that would stop. We could stop it. We could stop it next week.
That sounds all very fine and dandy, doesn't it? But I mean, what power does the British consumer actually have?
Total and complete.
Well, okay, but I mean, in the real world, let's go back to the real world.
Well, David, you're blaming China for making stuff cheaply.
No,
what I'm saying is that it's actually our fault for buying their cheap stuff, regardless of the consequences to human health for over there and over here.
So what are you saying? That we shouldn't have a consumer economy? We should all go back to ground zero?
No, what I'm saying is if the consumer made more ethical decisions based on how polluting an item is, the conditions in which the workers toiled, the effect on the economy and the environment of whatever it is that we buy, how much we buy, how disposable the things are that we buy. If we just thought for a second about all of that, then we might have still some industry left in this country that like clothes.
We do have a regeneration of industry, but it's sort of cottage industry and sort of high expensive textiles and things like that. We do have that now. But the mass produced...
Well, you're talking about the tartans that they make in the Isles of Scotland.
There are lots of other cottage industries that are still surviving in British...
but that makes no difference whatsoever. We're not talking about cottage industries. We're talking about mass market.
Do you? I mean, we all know what sort of stores we're talking about. I won't no names, no factory, but I mean, don't buy clothes. I buy clothes to last. I don't buy...
Well, that's just you, David. You and you alone. Everybody else wants a pack of 3 T-shirts for $5, and they don't care how many people suffered in the making of those shirts.
I'm afraid this is the problem, isn't it? That nobody does care because...
They just want price.
They don't have any influence over it.
They just want cheap. They do. We have absolute influence over it. The consumer is the fault. It's all our fault. Everything. Because of the choices that we make in the stores.
One final point, and I just think the whole COP26 is a waste of time because whatever we do, we know that China and India are the main...
Oh, please, David, don't start with the whatabouts. What about China? What about India? What about Russia? What about America? What about this, that, and the other? We can make an effort to change things ourselves. If the entire human race was gripped by whataboutism, then we would still be living in caves and using flints to chop up wildebeest. But good effort. Thanks a lot, David. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
Everything is going extremely well.
Yeah, you bet your life it is. Jim texts, please moan more about noisy leaf blowers all week at this here when mini gale whirling leaves in air. What? What are you talking about, Jim? Anyway, waste of energy. What happened to rakes? I quite agree. Yeah, it just drives me up the wall. You see like 6-foot hulking morons with a leaf blower spending half an hour blowing one leaf from one side of their driveway to another. Just pick it up, for crying out loud. Rakes, exactly. They should be illegal, leaf blowers. Why are they so noisy? Why can't you make a leaf blower that's actually quiet? Chris texts, if you want to convince the world's governments the Earth is warming exponentially, I don't think Glasgow is the place to do it. Yeah. Yes. And on that subject that we heard about in the news, this text says, did you see Biden in Italy with his 85-car entourage? Greta must be chuffed. Oh, he's probably choking on the noxious fumes. How can anybody have an 85-car entourage? I mean, who's in them? Why? Why would you need an 85-car entourage? I've never heard of anything so silly in all my life. Well, they're taking an entire hospital with them in case he doesn't make it to the end of this trip. 85 cars. That's ridiculous. And Tina texts, why can't the Insulate Britain lot show as much passion for all the effluent being pumped into our rivers and seas? That's something worth protesting about. Perhaps they could glue their faces to the outlet pipes. Glue their faces to the outlet pipes. That whole glue thing, that just seems to be a bit weird to me. I mean, what if somebody just they just pulled them off the pavement? They would leave their skin behind, right? I mean, it really is depending on the kindness of strangers who you are really annoying not to just pull you off the ground. Don't you find that a bit weird? That just seems strange behaviour to me. Glue. Why glue? Glue your face to the road. That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, I know you can't chain yourself to the road because where would the chain go? But there's got to be some other thing you can do other than super glue your facial features to the tarmac. This says, and every time, by the way, I go on the M25, I am gripped with fear that I'm going to, get stuck in one of those jams. I'm not saying I disagree with their stated aims. I'm just not entirely sure that walking into traffic on the M25 is the right way to go about it. But gluing yourself to something, I mean, who came up with that stupid idea? And did the person that came up with that idea actually do the gluing themselves, or did they suggest it to other people? Curious. This says we should stop drinking French wine until they free Boaty McBoatface. Oh God, the fishing thing. All right, well, I can't squeeze that in before the news. I'll try and put it in afterwards. The fishing thing. Stop drinking French wine.
Booze.
Unlikely. Yorkshire. Mike. Whoops. Hang on. One moment. Yes, Mike.
Nick?
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I'd just like to agree with some of the main things that you say, that we are responsible for what we end up with. We vote for who we vote for.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the sort of water crisis that we've got with the sewage at the minute, we voted for people who wanted to privatise the sewage system. We wanted cheap water.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that results in a lack of investment in sewage. And then we suddenly turn around and say, oh, it's the politicians that are at fault. No, it really isn't. We voted for that way of dealing with our sewage.
Amazing. We keep voting for a party that it doesn't even matter if it's their stated aim or not. Their record shows you that they are interested in selling off the family silver at the lowest possible amount that they can get to the benefit of the major institutional shareholders that end up, unsurprisingly, with most of the shares in gas and water and electricity and all these things that other more sensibly run countries wouldn't even dream of giving away to private enterprise. Water! We don't own our own water, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. And we voted for parties that will reduce the health system. And then we complain when it takes longer to get a GP appointment.
As though the two aren't in some way connected.
Absolutely, but we did vote for this, and we have to take responsibility as a nation for what we voted for.
Well, now you say we, of course, it is a minority. We have a screwed up democratic system, which is barely democratic at all, and getting less so by the day. It's a minority of the people that voted for this party. But because of the system that we've got, that party, with a minority of the vote, have a majority of the seats. We definitely need proportional representation in this country. We need coalition governments.
Absolutely. Although, what I will say is that the Scandinavians don't particularly rely on a system that relies on coalition, but they have a much more social responsibility-taking government where people pay more tax and get more from the government, trust the government, and get a really good system because they have a much higher happiness.
I know. Scandinavians, always so perfect.
It's a better system than we've got, Nick.
Absolutely. If you provide people with a safety net, then they feel more comfortable. They are more able to take risks with their careers and their lives, and they end up with a more satisfying life, and they are, by extension, happier. And what's the point? I mean, what is this life all about if it is not to maximize the amount of happiness you experience every minute of every day? Otherwise, what's the point? We're just ants.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just we have got into a treadmill of appointing people who appeal to us, like Boris.
Appeal to our worst sides, yeah. Appeal to our worst sides by blaming others for the things that we have by either directly or indirectly caused ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, you put a show on, you fluff your hair up, and everyone thinks, oh, he's good. But no one considers what it's actually going to do to us. I mean, even the way we're attacking the French at the minute is absolutely bizarre.
Well, I'll get into that in a minute. Okay, thanks for that, Mike. 0345 6060 973. It's 11:30 on LBC. The news headlines with Zora Solomon.
Shut up.
I can't. But that does remind me that I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol?
Yeah.
In which the delightful Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while maintaining a straight face and failing on both counts. If you want us to have a bash at your issue, simply send it to the following address, nickandcarol@global.com, nickandcarol@global.com, and prepare for a certain degree of satisfaction. And you can get that podcast where you get podcasts. It's called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol? If you haven't got Global Player, then you should download it. You can get it from your favourite app store. And on there you'll find all the stations that we do and the boatload of podcasts that come with it. And if you ask for it by name, then you will find it on an internet near you. What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol? Yes?
No.
Yes. So we should stop drinking French wine until they free Boaty McBoatface, says this anonymous missive. Right. It's just so... I mean, get this for a start. As France prepared to act on its plan to tie up British goods in red tape at ports in a row over fishing licences, Boris Johnson vowed to, quote, do whatever is necessary to protect British fishers. What a card. He is funny, no?
No.
Seriously, how can he have the nerve to tell British fisher persons anything, let alone promise them that he's on their side? He acts as though we've never paid attention to anything that he's ever said, that we've never heard any of his previous promises, as though he's new to us. We've seen you, Bodge. Captain Gaslighter, Bodger Johnson, said France remained the UK's best, oldest, closest allies, friends and partners. And that's why he's starting a war with them. And he intends on using them to fight a pretend war, of course, because it keeps his fans' minds from wandering to how they're hungry and poor, and everything that he's promised is about as likely to happen as him taking up cliff diving. Meanwhile, unelected bureaucrat and full-time Garfield the Cat impersonator David Frost, the UK Brexit minister, hit out at the unjustified measures, in his words, that the French government has said that it will impose from next Tuesday over the row about fishing access. He said, it's so unfair. Explain him to me, by the way, you Brexit fanatics. You wanted out of the European Union because you didn't want to get ruled by unelected bureaucrats. Well, Who's he? The warning over the unjustified measures that the French government has said it's going to impose followed the French government's announcement earlier this week that it will, from Tuesday, impose heightened customs and health checks on British goods, potentially impose a ban on boats landing fish, and scrutinise UK vessels' security, environmental standards and crew. They're going to scrutinise the crew with both hands.
Disgusting.
The measures are only going to be lifted if the UK and Jersey provide more licences for French vessels seeking to fish in their coastal waters, French ministers have said. I don't know why we're exercised about it. We don't eat the fish that we catch here. The measures are only going to be lifted if the UK and Jersey provide more licences, apparently. The UK government has approved 16 out of 47 applications for French boats to operate in our British coastal waters. Apparently 55 boats applying to fish in the waters off Jersey have been turned down by Jersey's government due to a lack of evidence that they have fished there for 10 days in any of the last 3 years. But how are they going to produce that? What, go back in time and take a selfie? I mean, small boats don't have the tech required, apparently, to... I ain't no sailor. But as far as I'm aware, those small boats that we're talking about, we're not talking about liners, we're not those massive like ships. They're just tiny. They haven't got the tech to prove that they have fished in particular waters for 10 days in the last 3 years. Which is probably why we demanded that they give us that evidence. We knew that they didn't have it, so that's why we asked for it. Because it's all a distraction. That's why we'll never get Brexit done. It's why our lot signed a deal that they had no intention of following. It's why they constantly stoke the war mentality of their fans, at battle with Europe forever, and especially France and Germany, constantly making like we're aggrieved and we're being picked on. It'll never stop until the government don't need to distract from their grasping and their incompetence and their lying. So that'll be never then. And it all benefits the French president too, because he can play the same game to keep his fans on side. But the fact is, we signed a deal that gave the French fisher persons their usual access to the 6 to 12 mile zone off the coast of the UK and the Channel Islands, including Jersey. And that unelected bureaucrat of ours, David Frost, negotiated it. And Bodger signed it, and they're both whining now how unfair it is. It's really quite incredible. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
Unbelievable. So here's the evidence, if it is indeed needed. Article 502 of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement states that access should be granted reflecting the actual extent and nature of fishing activity, that it can be demonstrated was carried out during the period beginning on the 1st of February 2017 and ending on the 31st of January 2020 by qualifying vessels. So we agreed that they can keep fishing as much as they used to. And like with everything else that this government signs, apparently they did it with their fingers crossed behind their backs. We didn't mean it. The French claim the UK is being overly rigid in demands for evidence of such historic activity. And it is difficult to believe that the Downing Street spokesmodel, who suggested France was acting in breach of both international law and trade cooperation agreements, did so without a wry smile, writes The Guardian, given our approach to implementing the Northern Ireland Protocol in the withdrawal agreement. I think that a smirk is the symbol of this government, isn't it? Because David Frost always seems to have a smirk on his face, as though he's not really serious. He's just going through the motions. That they have absolutely no intention of ever getting Brexit done, because it will allow us to have some phony war with Europe forever, always giving us someone to blame for what ails us. I mean, if in doubt, it's just do what Donald Trump would do. blame the other side for that which you are guilty. It isn't any kind of way to run a country, but, apparently we knew what we were voting for, and that's what we were voting for. A constant phony war with the French and Europe in general in order to take the eye off what's happening, here. It's always somebody else's fault. Nothing to do with us. Oh, it's the evil European Union. They're being mean to us. This text says, we have a boat in the Lake District. I know it's a first world problem, but it's going to be very sad and expensive for us, and also lots of businesses. What do you mean? You're talking about the sewage problem. Even in the beautiful Lake District, they're up to their eyeballs in it. But it's okay, because it's British sewage, and all the happier for it.
Hang about, Nick. Listen. Now, what I'm trying to say to you is this, Nick, right?
Yeah, I hadn't looked ahead in this, my cut and pasted Word document for all the messages. I just assumed that there was a couple coming in. It's actually more like a couple of hundred. So I'm way behind schedule. I am particularly bad at this job.
Correct.
Andy tweets, COP26 has cancelled Glasgow Christmas market. Cancelled Glasgow's Christmas market?
What?
It's too early for a Christmas market. What are you talking about, Andy? It's not even November yet. It's too early for Christmas. Jim emails, hello from Australia. Nobody should be surprised by weather in Scotland. I'm sure it's on the tourist board's website. Come to Scotland where umbrellas go to die. Offensive. This says, President Biden had an audience with Pope Francis today. The Pope looked like a choir boy when compared to crumbling Jurassic Joe. Joe Biden does look as though he's made entirely from paper, doesn't he? How old is he, by the way? To the nearest century. James says, is it true the ship Boaty McBoatface is in French waters catching my cod and chips for me at my local chippy next Friday? No, James. It is untrue. Incorrect.
Negative.
It's not catching cod at all. Not in our waters. It'll be catching mackerel.
Disgusting.
Anybody want mackerel and chips?
No.
Of course not. We hate that stuff. No, there ain't no cod in these waters. When the French find out that what we're dumping in the waters just off our coast, I'm sure they might think again. And go into a dry dock and spray their hulls. Let's have Charlie Culross.
Hello, Nick.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. So I was hearing you talking about water earlier on there, and I thought I'd give you a few facts about Scottish water.
Facts, okay.
Yes, facts, yes.
Lay them on us.
So Scottish water is 100% owned by the Scottish Government, so it's owned by the people of Scotland.
Is it?
Yes, 100%, and it has been for many years. The headquarters are actually in Dunfermline, which is very close to where I died.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we've got an abundance of fresh water. In fact, I think the story goes that there's more fresh water in Loch Ness alone than there is in all the lochs in England and Wales put together.
Well, yeah, probably the rivers and the lakes and all of that.
Yeah, but as I said, in Loch Ness, it's such a massive loch, but we've got 3,000 lochs in Scotland. So we've got an abundance of fresh water up here.
Up to your eyeballs you've got fresh water.
Yes, no, we have. And in fact, I've been on holiday this week, and it's done nothing but rain all week. But the two things that's good about rain up the rain up here is it keeps the country beautiful, and also it keeps the whiskey flowing as well.
Absolutely.
But also, fresh water in Scotland, although we don't export any of our fresh water at the moment, certainly when we do become independent, and obviously having our neighbours, their friendly neighbours, England next door, who are one of the largest importers of fresh water in the world, actually.
Are we?
That's another fact for you. Yep, I can check that as well.
Oh, now, wait a minute. Wait. Now, you're talking about bottled water?
I'm talking about fresh water. England's one of the largest importers of fresh water.
Well, where do we get it from?
I'm not too sure where you actually get it from. I just deal with Scotland, really. But but yeah, I know that you're one. I had this discussion with Ian Dale a while ago, and he confirmed it 5 minutes after the discussion with him. But anyway, Yeah, so obviously when we do become independent, obviously we may start exporting our fresh water. It's one of our many resources that we actually have at the moment.
Well, we would appreciate that, Charlie.
Thank you.
Appreciate
we
it.
actually supply England at the moment with 20% of the electricity needs as well. I don't know if you're aware of that as well. That's another feather in our cap.
Wow, this show is like an education, isn't it?
No.
It really is.
Like one.
You won't hear that on mainstream media, I'll tell you that right
Exactly,
now.
yes. We are breaking ground here, Charlie. Excellent work.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. I had no idea. Richard emails, Nick, I'm listening to you drinking Prosecco in candlelight. I'm saving money and the planet. There you are, you see, making an effort. Andy emails, Nick, I decided to give up alcohol for COP26. I looked out the window and there are huge pumpkins, massive spiders crawling up the side of houses. I'll tell you this, I'm not doing this again. I sat in a pub the other day and they had their Halloween thing. You know, everything was covered in spiders' webs with plastic spiders. And I don't freak out and run out the room when I see a spider, but I do deal with it with great vengeance. Do not call me up and tell me not to do that. All spiders and clothes moths must be executed on site, no exceptions. Unless the spider is so big that smashing it would cause me grief. It would discombobulate me. Then I do put the glass over it and then slide a piece of paper underneath and then just chuck it out the door. It's probably one of those homing spiders.
Oh, no.
It's with one of its 86 eyes, it's copped a look at me, and I'm for it. But it did occur to me sitting in that pub that I think we do have a visceral reaction to spiders and snakes. Even if you're not particularly bothered about them, there is something that inside you that goes... it's just really uncomfortable, even if they're plastic. And so I was sitting slightly uncomfortable, but fortunately I had the benefit of tequila,
booze,
to smooth that discomfort over. This says, to be done in your Scottish accent, went in the bakery today and what asked, is that a donut or a meringue? I don't get it. To be done in your Scottish accent, went in the bakery today and asked, is that a donut or a meringue? I don't understand. Do you get that?
Not really.
Not really, no. We don't get that. Is that a donut or a meringue? I don't get it. Doesn't matter how many times I say it, still don't get it. Anne says, at least you only have to wait until the 21st of December and then the evenings will start getting lighter again. Hooray for the solstice. Well, that is a good point. Yeah, on the 21st of December, it comes around really, really quickly. It's just that what happens after the 21st of December is another 6 months of darkness, it seems. Like, it seems to get dark really quickly and then take forever to get light again. Damn it! Oh, well, never mind. It's just our lives. Just the hours that in darkness, just stretching into the foreseeable future. I can't believe that we're still going through this. Every blooming year, it's the same thing. People are expressing their opinions.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
And nobody listens. You get, oh, well, we did that before and nobody liked it. Rubbish. Everybody likes it. There can't be a single person, not a single solitary person, who is not a professional cow fondler, who lives in the north of Scotland, who is interested in putting the clocks back. Why would you want a darker evening? It makes no sense. We give up a lighter evening to have a lighter morning. Why? You can't do anything with an hour extra light in the morning. Nobody can. What are you going to do with an hour extra light in the morning? You're going to sleep through it. It's pointless. Nobody thinks at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to go out for an hour's walk. Because you're in a mad rush to get out of the house and go and get the bus or the train. or sit in a car in a traffic jam because somebody's superglued their face to the road in front of you. You can't do anything with an extra hour of light in the morning, but you can in the evening. You come home from work and you think, I'll go out. I'll commune with nature. Marvellous. But it doesn't matter how many times you say it, the government doesn't want to do anything that might negatively affect them in the long term. They don't want to receive any negative headlines for something that they do. So they don't do anything. And we have to go through this every blooming year. It's excruciating. To be done in your Scottish accent. Went in the bakery today and asked, is that a donut or a meringue? I still don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Stop toying with me. Alex emails, did you know, and this is a fact, every governor of California have their portraits displayed in the Capitol building of Sacramento, and every one of them, apart from Arnold, have their signatures and names at the bottom of their portraits. Any idea why? Because nobody knows who they are, unless their names are printed, I would imagine. Everybody knows who Arnie is.
Affirmative.
He says, stay safe and may the power of logic and reason bless you and all of the people in the UK. Well, I don't know where you've been living, mate, but there ain't no logic or reason around these parts. We are logic and reasonless. Now, this says, according to Al Gore, I should be 10 foot underwater. Okay, so we'll just dismiss any concerns about the climate then. Good work, that texter. Sue says, there's a strange irony that the efforts of Insulate Britain, who have gone to such great lengths to highlight the urgency of global warming, almost pale into insignificance when the journeys of those people who are heading to COP26 are disrupted by the atrocious weather.
Anybody care what this guy thinks?
No! A 200 grand bottle of wine, what are you going to do with that? You know, look at it. Fondle it. Stick it in a cupboard and it'll gather dust. What's the point? I bet it tastes like vinegar. Uthman texts, Nick, Tom is trying... Tom, this the caller that I had some while ago, who I think the basic point was that the problem with the climate change debate is that people are being too alarmist. Well, it's only the end of the human race. That's all. That seems like something to be alarmed about. Anyway, Uthman says, Tom is trying to articulate that the government need to spread the message in a clearer manner that is accessible to everyone. But I don't think that's what he was trying to say. I don't think the government are being alarmist. I think there's the opposite of that. I think they're being a bit laissez-faire. It's just a series of I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Oh, don't worry about a thing. We'll invent some magic machine that will clear all of the CO2 out the air. Not all of it, mind, but just enough. That seems to be Bodger's plan for everything. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll invent something. British exceptionalism. You know, all of that. Flannel. Phil tweets, I think Tom's point, again with the thing about Tom, I think Tom's point could be accurately summarised as, leave him alone, he's doing his best. Oh. Never in human history has anybody elicited that response from an electorate. I mean, what other Prime Minister could you possibly imagine that a significant number of people in this country would greet his every misstep, or her, sexist, his every misstep and catastrophic cock-up with, oh, he's doing his best. You know, like he's a child. Like you've asked a 5-year-old to tidy his room. And it ends up being messier than when he started. Oh, he's doing his best. Like you've asked your dog to make your breakfast. And it forgets to warm the teapot. Idiot dog. But he's doing his best. Jim says, if you want to influence government policy, you donate money to the Tory party. Just look at the amount donated by property developers to the existing government. Money is what makes the world go round. You bet your life it is. I think donating money to the Conservative Party is probably the best investment that you could make. You make out like a bandit. Glossop. Richard.
Hey, Nick.
Richard.
You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I do listen to you every week, so I'm going to put in the usual but.
Right.
Okay, now this whole fishing thing surrounds the waters around the Channel Islands. Right. That's why the French are kicking off.
Yeah.
And it relates, I understand it, 17 boats that have been denied a licence by the Bailiwick of Jersey.
No, it's 55, isn't it? Hang on a minute. I have detailed files. I think it's 55. I think 16 out of 47 applications for French boats to operate in the UK's waters. 55 have been turned down to fish off Jersey.
Well, I heard the article a couple of days ago when I heard one of Jersey's ministers, the government ministers in Jersey. Yeah. Now, apparently, the ones that have been turned down... Now, I could show you where any boat in this country is within a few seconds.
Right.
Your mobile phone.
Yeah.
There's a thing called AIS.
Okay.
And it shows all maritime traffic around the country, around the world. And the thing is, it's like a CCTV. It's recorded. Mm-hmm. And there's two ways I can prove where I've fished. One is by producing my transponder records, which go onto AIS, showing my position. And the second thing is, when I land my catch, state which fishing ground it's come from.
Right.
Problem is, these people who've been turned down, and this is the absolute truth, it's been proved by using historical AIS since 2017, aren't supposed to be fishing in certain waters at certain times. So what they did was, they just switched off the transponder. The problem's become now, just as British fishermen had to prove they were fishing, to gain EU licences, these French fishermen have been asked to provide the records, either the documents when they land the fish, hold on, or the AIS records, which they obtain in a few days, showing the position of their boat. But because they were overfishing, they turned off the transponder.
Well, no, that's a... wait, hang on a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. That's a bit of a stretch because they were overfishing. You don't know that.
Fishing unlawfully.
Eh?
How would you switch your transponder off?
Well, I don't know that they did, and neither do you.
Nick,
hang on a minute. Hang on. If that thing is available, and I don't doubt it, then how would you be able to tell what happened 3 years ago?
It's recorded.
It's recorded? Where?
I believe the records are kept for 6 years. HM Coast Guard keeps them. Also, there's also the landing documents where you state... You can go down to Tesco's tomorrow and it'll tell you the landing ground that your fish came from.
Yeah, but they're French, though.
These are all records.
Yeah, but they don't land in Tesco's, do they? They land in France.
The records are kept. They're noted down at the fish market or processing plant where they landed.
In France?
In France as well. Most EU countries record it. As far as I know, they have to record it.
Right.
By law, by EU law, it has to be recorded, because how can you calculate fishing's taking place for fishing quotas if you don't have a record?
Right, well, I don't know.
That's how you do it. You record where it's caught and when it's landed. But there's the AIS records anyway.
Right,
you can check it up.
Okay, so you're saying that the reason that they can't prove that they were fishing in those waters, you're not disputing that they were fishing in those waters, so by definition they do have the right to continue fishing because that's what we signed up for, but you're saying that the reason that they can't prove it is because they had switched off their transponder because they were potentially overfishing.
Potentially overfishing, perhaps I used the wrong term, unlawfully fishing.
Right.
Been getting a quota, but they'd switched off the transponder. As you mentioned, quite rightly, they've got to prove that they've been fishing those particular grounds for 10 days. I think it's in any 365-day period.
Right,
is that right?
But you're not disputing that they did it.
Disputing they did it.
Right, so their claim is valid.
proved they were.
There's something wrong with your phone, Richard. I don't know what kind of phone you're using. Maybe it's a satellite phone. Are you aboard ship at this moment? Are you, in fact, on a submarine? It seems to be cutting off the first word of every sentence you speak. See, there it is again. It's really weird. It's just odd. It's just like it's voice activated or something. But anyway, I get that, and I'm prepared to believe that in the absence of any further information. But it doesn't. Whether they were breaking the law at some point in the past is irrelevant to the claim that they have at the moment, which is to continue to fish, which is what we signed up for. And also, if they were breaking the law, just the very idea that by extension we have not done any such thing is somewhat unbelievable. If they were doing it, I betcha we were doing it too. But anyway, good information there, Richard. Thanks for that. Eddie texts, if Biden's cavalcade drove through the ULEZ, Mayor Khan would earn a fortune. Yeah, I bet none of those cars in the 85 car catastrophe that follows Joe Biden around would have passed the ULEZ. I mean, they're American cars. I bet they get, 3-4 miles to the gallon. That's ridiculous. That's one of the silliest things I've ever heard in my life. 85 car cavalcade to follow the President of the United States of America around. Is it 85 cars because Donald Trump had 84? I wouldn't be surprised. Martin texts, this global warming and sea level rise may be not so bad. I currently live 3 miles from the sea, but in 10 years' time I may have a waterside property. It's going to be worth the squillions, says Martin. That is a good point. Lester. Hello, David.
Well, I was going to say that they tracked the boats by GPS, but the previous caller's obviously done a better job than me. I mean, he's got more information there, so... he's got apps and everything, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, not Donald Trump, the President of America, I forgot his name.
Joe?
Joe, that's it, yeah. Even if he's got 75 cars behind him, they can't impose a ULEZ scheme on them because they'll have political immunity from parking fines.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's no good.
Diplomatic immunity. Try to put a ticket on one of those cars and you'll be met with a strong defence.
Well, they just ignore them. I've talked to some politicians from another country and you just whip them up and throw them away.
Yeah.
And the Scottish man before the news bragging about Scottish highlights and how great Scotland is. I don't know whether it was your show, but it was one show, and they were saying that the Shetland Islands want to remain part of the United Kingdom. So most of the oil fields that Scotland says are theirs are off the Shetland Islands. Isn't that correct?
The Shetland Islands. That's like 3 people and a sheep.
Yeah, but they want to stay part of the UK. So Scotland can be independent. They can have the euro. The Shetland Islands can continue with the pound and their huge oil fields. It'll be wonderful for them.
No, but we don't want no oil no more, remember?
We'll still have oil. We'll need it. For
David, are you using the same phone as the previous guy? Because everything that you say is being cut off as well. I get the middle part of the sentence, just not the beginning and the end, which makes it somewhat difficult to understand. Mobile phones, they are great, no?
No.
Not actually usable as a phone. Never mind. Thanks a lot, David. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us.
Yes, Paul, in Selby, your call is important to us. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Paul.
I would like a drop of that wine that's gone missing, actually.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it just? Because I'll tell you what, I would drink it.
But I bet it tastes absolutely horrible. I mean, it's over 200 years old. How could wine last that long? Doesn't seem feasible,
Well, you
does it?
No, it doesn't really. It just makes you wonder how stupid it is, which is why I'd open it. If it tasted all right, I'd drink it. Basically.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if it did taste all right, what else are you going to do with it? Just look at it.
Well, exactly. But anyway, the reason I phoned it was about our Scottish cousins, and this incessant, nonsense from them. Well, I live in the deepest north now, and spent half my life in London. And in London, coming up to Christmas, the hour going back at this time of the year was almost devastating down there. It was for me. It just was the beginning of the winter, and it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it makes you want to curl up into a ball and not come out for 6 months, doesn't it?
Well, that was it. And I was working out the motorbikes in London, and it was like, all of a sudden it got dark, cold and wet and Christmas, so didn't like that. But anyway, now I live in deepest North Yorkshire, where I originally hailed from. And today, it went dark at 5 o'clock.
Blimey.
So tomorrow, or whenever they do this silly thing, it'll now be dark at 4 o'clock. But it gets light. This is now before it gets worse. It's light at about 5 o'clock in the morning.
What?
And the reason for it is Scottish people, because the reason we do this is because at this time of year up in Scotland, and it's, they got such shorter days. They actually need more light in the morning so their kids can get to school in the light.
You can either go to school in the light or come back from school in the light, not both.
Well, this is it, but sadly, that I can understand it. But the thing is, this is my whole point. They're so keen to get independence. I mean, I'm pretty much against it. But if they want to do it, the only advantage I can see, the one and only advantage, is we can go in a different time zone and just keep our summertime all year round.
I think, we should definitely do that. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the European Union was thinking about doing it, and then the invisible menace from China put the kibosh on all other considerations, didn't it?
I don't really know, mate.
Well, I think so. Yeah.
I think we live in a mad world, don't we? Really,
it's a mad world. Yes, no doubt.
It is.
I'm just looking at the actual real life facts on this issue, and sun up is at 8:15 in Glasgow, and sundown is at 4:45. So it's going to be at 4:45 as of Sunday, and it's going to get light. Going to get light at 7:16, which is which is a time that nobody can do anything with. What can you do with that apart from milk cows?
Well, yeah.
Cows don't know what time it is. They don't care.
The Scottish aren't even up at that point, most of them, are they? You know what I mean?
Well, let's not start picking a fight.
No, my ancestors are Scottish.
Oh, well, that's okay then. Oh, sure.
No, but I'm from Yorkshire, mate, and I'm proud to be English, and I love Scotland and all that stuff. But like I said, my only reason for them to leave, because I'm quite pro-union and all that stuff, But my only real reason why I quite like them to leave is I get me bloody hour back.
Yeah.
I
don't think. I don't think the one will lead to the other. To actually make a change to the clocks would require a government acting in the interests of the people rather than acting in their own personal short-term interests by avoiding negative headlines in the right-wing press, who will be searching around for some story that they can blame on the clock's change. There'll be front-page headlines about some traffic accident that was caused by the darkness being at the wrong end of the day, and therefore these particular deaths are on you, Boris Johnson, or the Conservative government, or whoever voted it through. That's what I mean. I don't know that it's a fact, but it doesn't stop it from being true. Thanks a lot, Paul. 0345 6060 973. I mean, that would be my reading of it. That on contentious issues that will not gain the Conservative Party an edge or a benefit in the short term, they just leave alone because, why bother? Why change something that might come back to bite you, even if it is in the interest of the majority of the people? I mean, who actually wants the clocks to go back? Who? I want the names of the people. Who are they? And this thing about, the school children will be going to school in the dark. Do me a favour. School children don't walk to school anymore. They get driven in 4x4 tanks. This text says, no, you know what? No. I'm not doing any more jokes. I am not reading the one about I've been offered 8 venison legs for 200 quid, and do you think that's too dear? This show is not a Christmas cracker. It's not a cracker. Chris says, the 85 cars in Joe Biden's car catastrophe. What do they call it? It's not a caravan. It's a presidential parade. What's the word I'm looking for?
Is it a convoy?
No, that's trucks. Well, I suppose it could be, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's I'll just go with catastrophe. The 85 cars in that catastrophe were all sporting American registration plates. They will have been flown to Italy from the USA and will probably be heading here for COP26 before being flown back to the USA. I don't think that's saving the environment, is it? Could you not have stayed in America and just called it in, Joe? I mean, you ain't going to change your mind on anything at all just by showing up in Glasgow. I mean, what do we imagine actually happens there? That people are going to be standing on stage and doing speeches, and the leaders of the world are going to be sitting there making their minds up about the various issues at that moment, and then enacting those policies instantly? Of course not. I mean, what's it for? It's so that they can say, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and don't worry about a thing. We've got it all under control. I bet nothing comes from it. I betcha. It'll be just a bunch of I'm gunners. Manchester, hello, Graham.
Good evening, young man. It's a cavalcade.
It's not quite what I'm looking for. What's the actual proper term for presidential...
It's a cavalcade. You see, when people try to feed you with some honest information other than deer's legs, you just dismiss it. How dare you?
Cavalcade. It's not a cavalcade. It's a...
It is.
It isn't.
Of course it is, you silly man.
Oh, okay then. You should have
It is,
said.
honestly, trust me.
Right
it's
then.
It's Baltimore Bootface, the Scotsman.
Motorcade.
Affirmative. No,
That's
it's
what
a
it is.
cavalcade.
A cavalcade, right.
Cavalcade.
I was
Oh,
close.
never mind.
Close. No cigar.
Really. Anyway. You know these water companies?
Yes.
Are you aware that it's cheaper for them to pay the fines than it is to treat the water?
Yeah,
That's why they get rid of it.
I wouldn't doubt that for a moment.
That is factual.
Well, we're not interested in facts on this show.
Well, we're not interested in facts in the country. We're interested in paying less tax, aren't we?
Can you make something up instead? And just tell me it's true.
Well, I was going to say it'll rain or go dark before morning, but in Manchester it does both.
Yeah. Even in the middle of the day, in June.
Even in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for the update there, Graham. Cheers, mate.
It was a pleasure.
Was it? The pleasure was entirely yours. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mary texts, the drinking water from the Thames in London has passed through 400 sewage treatment plants. I'm really glad I live in Oxford, says Mary. It's also probably passed through 400,000 different people.
Disgusting.
Before you get to drink it. Ugh. Jim says, how sad it is that water companies that dump the filth in our rivers do so because it's cheaper to pay the fines than to pay for treating it. Oh, how about that? It's almost like we're in stereo. He says it, and then it appears as though by magic on my screen in front of me. It's a miracle. Cindy texts, makes me wonder why the French are so eager to have our fish. Our fish don't seem very appetising to me, with sewage flowing round them. Yeah, I think they'll probably think again once they get the news translated from English into French. French persons, have you heard the news? Apparently not. Get Bob Dylan on the phone. He's going to have to re-record that single as Tangled Up in Poo. You know her tweets. I saw Johnson Sr. on one of the rolling news channels this week. He was introduced as an environment expert. They were almost half right. Good to see nepotism isn't dead or subtle. Environmental expert. Funny, no?
No.
Not really. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC. It's 12:30. The news headlines with Zora Solomon.
Right, so what are we doing?
Given we're doing a radio show, 0345 6060 973. This text says Biden may have an 85-car entourage, but does he have a royal yacht, HMS Patriotic Folly? That's a good question. Yeah, does he have actually like a solid gold boat for Bodger to go and have a holiday on? And to conduct trade deals, I'm sure, yeah, they're going to do that. It's like front of mind, yeah. But mostly it's going to be for having a good time on the poop deck, if you please.
Disgusting.
Actually, appropriately named. The poop deck. John Tex just got back from a half-term trip to London, went to M&M's World, and all the time I was there I kept thinking, Nick would love it here. You can now have your face printed on the M&Ms. What a time to be alive. You're joking. You can have your face on an M&M. So you can pop it in your mouth and lick your own face off. You could take a picture of your face licking your own face off. I think we've just reached peak narcissism. Huh. I had no idea. Phil says, 3 days ago I decided to buy a new kettle to replace a cheap foreign one I got. I chose one from a British manufacturing company at 3 times the cost of an old one. When it arrived, I went straight for the label which said, Made in China. What did I do wrong? A British manufacturing company at 3 times the cost of the old one. Right. Well, like I said, it's we just outsourced all our polluting. And many of the jobs that we used to rely on. It's odd that we complain vociferously about people coming over here, taking our jobs. Jobs, it turns out, that we don't actually want to do, and we're begging them to come back and redo the jobs that we were yelling at them for 5 years to get out of our country because we wanted to do those jobs. Turned out we did not want to do those jobs. But that's an aside. But we don't really mind or even notice that jobs leave this country and go to other countries. I mean, it's the same thing. Foreigners do the jobs that we used to do. It's just that when they're doing them in other countries, then those foreigners who earn wages over there, they pay taxes over there. And the corporations that make them also pay taxes over there. So we're losing much more by farming jobs out to other countries than we would if we kept the jobs here and they were done by foreigners coming here. But that's but we only complain about one and not the other. Curious. Loughborough. Hello, Jilly.
Hi, Nick. You
Jilly.
make me laugh.
Oh, cheers, my dear.
I'm just wondering, how did Greta get on today?
Who?
Greta Thingamabob.
Oh, Greta Thingamabob. I don't know. What was she doing today?
Well, wasn't she protesting? And I just wondered
no
if
doubt.
the Prime Minister came out and gave her a fold-down chair and a butty and a flask of tea.
That didn't happen, did it?
I don't know.
No, probably not. No. A butty and a flask of tea. Yeah, almost certainly not.
I bet it was vegan.
She's going to be making the news this weekend, though. I betcha.
Betcha back.
And she'll probably be the only one who's talking either sense or truth. But we can't handle the truth. More blah, blah, blah. I don't know why they're bothering. I mean, the last one didn't do anything, and the one before didn't do anything, and the one before that didn't do anything, and we're at number 26 already. And by next year it'll be 27, and the year after it'll be 28, by which time we'll probably all be living on the sea, there being no land left. Still, it could be worse. We could be on fire. This says, if the Queen is not well enough to rule us for a while, should Prince Charles not rule us until she's well again? I feel the Queen is ruling us part-time from home. Jay says, I've been driving since 1998 and I have never driven on a motorway. Wow. Huh. Says, however, Insulate Britain have now encouraged me to take the plunge. I don't have to keep up a high speed, and I can sit comfortably in my car while familiarising myself with the motorway environment. Yeah, well, in a stationary position, you mean? Cornwall. That's a bit vague. Where are you, Mark?
What do you mean vague? I mean, it's a sunny Cornwall, Nick. It's not vague. It's sunny Cornwall. I mean, it's absolutely lashing down with rain here right
Is it?
now. It's chucking it down.
But where in Cornwall? Cornwall's a big place.
Even sunnier Newquay. How about that, Nick?
Newquay. Oh, very nice.
What a beautiful hole it is as well. So anyway, I can definitely confirm it 100%. It is motorcade. And the reason is in 1978, one of the best post-punk bands called Magazine wrote a song about it. And it's definitely 100% motorcade. So you are correct, Nick.
Was it the B-side of Shot by Both Sides?
No, but well remembered. It was on their first album, Definitive Gaze, but well done. So, but most importantly, the reason I'm calling is I used to own and I test drove both cars that they use in this 85 car motorcade that Uncle Joe drives around. The first car is a Cadillac Escalade. And I owned one because I used to live in California, where it actually is sunny there most of the time. But here we go. You ready for the mileage details?
Oh, what, miles per gallon, you mean? No, let me guess.
Miles per gallon.
Let me guess. Let me guess.
You're going to love this one, the Cadillac Escalade.
Let me guess.
Okay, go on, Nick, go on. Here we go.
The Cadillac Escalade, which is the size of a semi-detached house. I mean, it's absolutely enormous. 6 litres, which is at least 3 litres too many. I'm guessing 12 miles to the gallon.
Oh, you looked it up.
No, I did not. I did not look it up. Is that right?
Well, actually, that's pretty much the best mileage around town. I got, ding, there it goes. But I actually averaged around 9 miles around town. So 9 miles per gallon. Now, the second car they use in this beautiful motorcade is called the Chevrolet Denali. Okay, let's see if you can guess the mileage on that.
What is it? It's Chevrolet Denali.
Chevrolet Denali. It's a cheaper version of the Cadillac Escalade, Nick, and cheaper as in plastic version. The others have got all leather seats. The Denali's got, well, whatever. So the Denali's used for the quote-unquote less important people. That one comes out at a whopping 19 miles to the gallon.
Excellent value for money.
So,
but neither of those, actually, the thing that President Joe sits in, that would be the thing called the Beast, which I think weighs about 5 tons or something like that, being as how it's made out of lead, and that probably gets 1 mile to the gallon. In fact, it's probably got its own onboard nuclear power station just to make it go. Thanks for the info there, Mark. 0345 6060 973. How ridiculous is that? He's showing up at a climate change conference. Now, we don't know whether he's actually going to bring all 85 cars here. Would they even fit in Glasgow? You'd have to park in Edinburgh. Commute. But if he does, I mean, how ridiculous is that? It's almost like he's gaslighting us. Taking a page out of Bodger's book.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I mean, that is ridiculous. 85 cars. Who's in them? I mean, he's going to have his security detail right now, but that's got to be a couple of cars worth, maybe 3. Okay, he's the President of the United States of America, so let's say 10 cars worth. 5 people in each, so that's 50 people. That's a small army. You can't possibly need more than that. And then he'll have his medical people in case he succumbs to his advanced old age. He is about 150 years old. So there'll be, a small hospital that goes with him. So how many cars are we up to now? So let's say that's another 5 with all the equipment, because they're going to need the machine that goes bing. He'll probably got the very best Bing machine in the world. His machine will go. Other than that, we'll have his reporters and his advisors, and the people that make sure that he stands up straight and doesn't gaff too much. I mean, 20 cars tops. I mean, 20 would be a stupidly large number of cars to have traipsing around after you. 85? Come on, Joe. Daniel tweets, I can't believe all this heat towards Johnson. He's doing his best. Shut up, Daniel. I mean it. Woodford, Alison. Oh, Alison.
Hi, Nick.
Alison.
Hello. Sorry, I'm tuning in towards the end of the show, so I don't know if I'm going to be off target, but it seems like we're talking about the climate and the COP26 coming up.
Yeah.
Just wondering, Greta, I'm like, what? Is it weird? I don't really understand what's going on with Greta, to be honest. Like, what? So we had the whole Donald Trump sort of like and calling her out, and the whole world being like, what are you doing? 16-year-old like school kid, like leave her alone.
I
and
know.
Kind of,
you're trolling a child, Donny.
And it's a disgrace.
Exactly. So then that was like cool, and then but now I'm just like, are we actually really looking towards her for what to do?
No.
Because I'm worried about that.
No, of course not. Leaders aren't paying the slightest bit of attention to Greta Thunberg. They only pay attention if the people that might decide whether they get to keep their jobs or not are upset. This is why they did a pretty swift U-turn. They turned around on a sixpence about the chucking sewage into our waters. They thought they were going to get away with that, and that was the brown
under the radar,
the brown line in the sand beyond which we were not prepared to go. So they changed their minds. Toot sweet.
Don't you think it's pretty terrifying to think? Well, what else aren't they telling us that they're doing?
Well, exactly. Which is one of the reasons why the Freedom of Information Act is an act which actually prevents any information from becoming free.
Exactly, and only if it's recorded,
and only if they like it, and only if it's going to friends of the regime. Because if any journalist asks a question of the government under the Freedom of Information Act, then the answer is no. And furthermore,
no. Maybe we should actually get Greta and Zuckerberg to join forces.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine the information?
Zuckerberg?
Meta.
That moon-faced creep who runs Facebook? That bloke?
Yeah.
No.
He seems to know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's got detailed files on you, me, and everyone that we know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was it. I was just wondering about. So you are. You put Greta kind of up there above the politicians.
No, not above.
In terms of this debate.
Yeah. Beside, she is making public things that may otherwise have not come to as many people's attention. She's just publicising. What then happens is what politicians do. And they will only do the right thing if we insist on it. That much is evident. And if we do or say nothing, then we will allow them to get away with doing nothing. Or essentially doing nothing that that inconveniences them in the short term. If we insist that they do the right thing now for our long-term gain, they will do that. But if we don't, they won't. And Greta's a small cog in this by bringing things to our attention that otherwise might not have, flitted across our brains. So good for her. The grief that she gets for doing it. She's just trying to help, but people just pile on with the whatabouts. Oh, she once ate a vegetable. Vegetable killer. Thanks a lot, Alison. 0345 606096. I don't know, actually, that Greta Thunberg has killed a vegetable, but that doesn't prevent it from being a fact. 0345 6060 Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
Come on, we're running late!
Lorry text, those little boats have loads of tech on board and 98% of French boats have been permitted to continue to fish in UK waters. Sounds like we're being pretty reasonable, right? Well, if those figures are indeed accurate, then I suppose so. It depends on whether we agreed to give 100% of French boats the permission to continue to fish in UK waters, which I think we did. That word continue to, or words, that word, continue, being the most important one in that sentence. But I don't think 98% of French boats have been permitted to continue to fish because only, I've got the detailed files here, only 16 out of 47 applications to operate in the UK's coastal waters. That's not 98%. And 55 boats applying to fish in the waters off Jersey have been turned down. That doesn't sound like 98% either. Other than that, it's completely accurate in every way, shape and form. This says, could the French not put a lick of paint on that rust bucket boat while it sits idle? It does look like it needs a little bit of a spruce up, yeah. Fulham, hello, Martin.
Oh, hi, Nick. Thanks for taking my call.
Martin.
So as for these 87 vehicles, I wouldn't be surprised if many of those people in those cars were just expats and friends of the diplomatic corps, American diplomatic corps in Italy and thereabouts, who just wanted an opportunity to be near the Pope without the usual scrum of common people in the way.
Well, it seems a bit extreme to import 85 cars from America.
Yeah, I know. So that's probably not what happened. Those cars were already somewhere in that part of the world anyway for the diplomatic service of America and their friends and their chums who had been given an excuse to be near the Pope,
right,
and glow and bask in his holy glow.
Yeah. Right.
And to put this in proportion, I remember about, doesn't matter when, it happened to be a few weeks ago, I was by the M4, and when there was absolutely nobody famous in the political world, globally speaking, happened to have to go out to Heathrow Airport by the appearance of things, and I lost count of the number of cars there were. There's a car containing the VIP, and then whoever the VIP had to face-to-face with, and then there's protection, and no end of police motorbikes with their drivers getting off their bikes, just whistling everyone left, right, and centre just to ignore what the traffic lights were saying.
Yes.
So that a relative nobody could get out there, escorted by, as part of I said 12, oddly dozen-odd cars, vehicles. Forgetting the motorbikes, just about a dozen. I just ran out of it. I just couldn't believe my eyes. And ears.
Well, so who was the VIP?
I don't know, because it wasn't to do with anything that happened. Right. There was no news of somebody that important. Right. Obviously a country leader or somebody very high up and important in a huge country. They weren't having a secret meeting with. You can't keep that secret. If somebody like that turns up and has to go to Downing Street or go to Buckingham Palace or whatever. No, this happened about sort of night time.
And it was on the M4.
M4 by just east of Hammersmith Broadway.
Well, I have an idea who that might have been, because a motorcade of the description that you have just illustrated for us there, Martin, sped by me, and I was stopped by motorcycle outriders on the elevated section of the M4 by Hammersmith.
Yeah.
And it was Her Majesty the Queen going by the way, in a 70-mile-an-hour stretch at way over 100. She was speeding like she was being propelled along by a jet plane.
Yeah, well, the poor girl hasn't got long to live, so every second counts.
Neither do any of us, Martin. Every moment counts, absolutely. Take every one as it comes and make the most of each and every second. Or you could just sleep through it. Thanks a lot, Martin. 0345 6060 973. There's an update to that thing that confused me a little while ago. I've got rid of it, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something of the order of a bloke goes into a bakery and says, "Is that a donut or a meringue?" And I was instructed to say it in a Scottish accent. Well, the explanation, and it mystified me, and the explanation has just come in, and I can't believe that I haven't figured this out. I feel so stupid. No, Nick, you're not stupid. It could have happened to anybody. Why do you beat yourself up like that? Can I please get some help here? So, embarrassingly, for me particularly, because I grew up in Scotland, so I should have twigged this straight away. Bloke walks into a bakery. See, you're supposed to say it in a Scottish accent. Bloke walks into a bakery and says, "Is that a donut or a meringue?" In a Scottish accent sounds, "Is that a donut or a meringue?" As in, am I wrong? Talk about embarrassing. A meringue. Oh, painful. Stop with the jokes, people. I mean it. This text says, "Do we get an extra hour of you tomorrow night?" No. Also, I love the clock change. It means I can put the kids down at 5:30 and they are none the wiser. #winning. Hey, we take this show and the one on Saturday and we squirt it up the internet as a podcast. We take the news and the ads out, which means it takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity. And eco-warriors won't have to glue their face to your face. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. Nick Abbott, the whole show. Get it on Global Player. If you just do an internet search on my name, Nick Abbott Podcasts, then the 3 that I do will become instantly clear as though by magic. I will try to wipe up all the texts and the emails and such that I got that I didn't get around to. There being just boatloads of them tonight when I come back at 10. Ian Payne will delight you at 4 o'clock, but right now it's Clyde Bull. 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 Right now.